And I have a microphone in my face, and we're live! Welcome to the show! Finally, yes! Alan had to wait a whole 10 minutes before he could drink beer, and he couldn't wait that long, so he started drinking beer already. You heard it here first, or something. I don't know. How's it going, everyone?
Pretty good. How are you, Shane? You always ask us first. It's time that we ask you.
It's time you've asked me. No one's ever asked me before. It's somebody out there caring about me. Anyway, I don't know. It's been busy around here. We're also still kind of, every day you're looking for the dog that's no longer there. You're kind of like, nope, not there. Or not. I still keep going. So, I work from home.
Well, I got some good news. Now we can drink beer.
Yes, this is a good thing. I'm not even going to bother mentioning the beer I have because it's been the same beer for weeks. And I'll tell you why. Because the nice people across the street thought we were really awesome last week and gave us a bunch of beer, which I think I showed you, Locke.
Yeah.
Yeah, you showed me too.
So I'm still burning through it. So,
righteous and good.
Okay.
hey,
So Dave
Gallery.
and I are. Oh,
Sorry.
Dave and I are drinking the same thing today. We're trying to get to the new normal here. So Dave and I are getting the same thing. Hopefully we can get Shane on board soon. But from Cannery Brewing, we're having their Okanagan Days Apricot and Pinot Gris or Gris wheat ale.
Gris.
Pinot Gris. Now, I haven't done any reading up on this. Usually I would. I haven't done that.
But this week
there
I
isn't much
just don't care.
There isn't much information on the can.
It is. What kind of beer is this?
This is a wheat ale.
It's a wheat ale. Okay.
Yeah, so it's called Okanagan Days Apricot and Pinot Gris.
Yeah.
Which I would say Pinot Gris, wouldn't that be like a wine?
That's a kind of wine, yeah. So
Yeah.
Pinot Gris is a white wine.
Okay. So here's the beer here. It's kind of got this. It's hazy. Ale. It's obviously unfiltered. Very light, but deep flavor. Holy crow!
Holy crow!
Holy crow! It's not exactly odorous. Like I don't get a lot of smell off of it.
What do you think?
Yeah, Dave, what do you think?
This is not bad. Not bad. It definitely has some of the Pinot going on. I think you can detect some of that wine in it, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there definitely is a bit of apricot, I would say. As usual with the fruit, it doesn't really.
Dave, are you a wine drinker?
Nah. I do
but
sometimes.
But you know the flavor of Pinot Gris, and you say that is part of the profile of this wheat beer.
I wouldn't go that far. I can just kind of detect the how would I put it, the wininess.
You know the flavor of Pinot.
Okay,
that is part of the profile of this wheat.
Wine lingo.
A little bit like Gretzky in the 80s.
Yeah.
If you're from Calgary.
But Dave's totally right. Like, I totally detect that sort of like that white wine kind of flavor, that aftertaste that you get sometimes when you drink a white wine. I'm not a wine drinker myself, so I don't really have any of the lingo or anything. I totally detect that. The apricot flavor is, it's a hint of it. And the only reason why I'm detecting it at all is because I can read it on the label. If I didn't see the label, I probably wouldn't detect any of the apricot.
What does the label say when it says ingredients?
Doesn't have it.
No.
It says Canadian It says down at the bottom here, Canadian wheat ale fermented with apricots and Pinot Gris juice.
Okay, so they're not talking about wine. They're not adding wine to the beer. They're adding Pinot Gris grapes. So Pinot Gris are a varietal of wine grape that ultimately are the same thing as Pinot Grigio, and Pinot Gris is what they call them in California. Pinot Grigio is what they call them in Italy. But but that's a varietal of grapes. So they haven't fermented the grapes first and added wine. What they've done is they've added a kind of grape.
Yes.
So it's grapes plus apricots is what it is.
Guess so, yeah. I mean, I'm really liking this. Now, as far as sort of like wheat ales go, I think we've had better wheat ales in the past. But and the one that's really kind of coming to mind was that from Red Arrow last summer. We did their Heritage River Hefeweizen. And we all really seemed to like that. And I remember, Locke, you were on that particular show, and you really enjoyed it.
I might just have. This was where was I living at the time?
I don't know. I think you were with Shane at the time, at his place.
Okay. Oh yeah. All right, got it.
Yeah.
I would be visiting Shane in Vancouver. That's what would have been happening.
That's right. We really enjoyed that. In fact, I actually just found it recently at the store. I picked up a bottle and I got it in my fridge. But I put that one first. As far as sort of like wheat ales go, I'd make this one it's kind of getting up there. It's I'm actually really enjoying this. I would get it again.
Dave, are you in consensus that this is Alan more enthusiastic than you are, or am I?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd get this for myself again. I'm not minding it. It is. I think I kind of always default to this, but for me, it's more interesting to explore the tastes of different beers because, as I've said 1,000 times, I'm not a real beer drinker. So for me, a lot of this is new, right? So
that's beer.
For that,
you are a real beer drinker.
Nah, not
We've been doing this for how many years now? Face it, you're a real beer drinker.
Yeah, but I can't. I only say that because I can't speak to beers in the way that they like to be spoken.
You can't speak to beers, you haven't drunk enough.
That's my point. So, yeah, it's cool. I do like it for what it is, but not enough that I would be going out and grabbing it for myself if I was just going to be, bringing something to a little shindig or whatever that, some people were getting together. I don't think I would particularly grab this one. There's been others that I have enjoyed more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Locke, what are you drinking, buddy?
Right. So you'll recall in our last episode, I was reaching out for a particular beverage and something else showed up instead. What I was looking for was the Mad Tom Muskoka Brewing IPA.
Right.
What showed up was not that. This week I do indeed have the Muskoka Mad Tom IPA.
Mad Tom!
So, how is this thing? Well, all right. So, a couple of weeks ago now, I was drinking Bone Shaker, which is Amsterdam Brewing's heavy-duty IPA. It's 6%. It's, very, very hoppy, but also it's got a sort of a big malt behind it. So this also, as compared to Driftwood's, Fat Tug or any of our other favorite sort of West Coasty IPAs, this has got a little bit more malt behind it.
Okay.
Do I like it? Yes. Yeah, I like it. Do I like it as much as Fat Tug? No, but that's rare that I like something as much as Fat Tug. We got Chinook and Centennial hops in this thing. There's balance in the flavors. It's I would say better balanced than Bone Shaker, which lives up to its name, and it's a little bit of a mouthful of ass kick. This is a more civilized drink. This is something that it's more quaffable, let's say.
Okay.
So Muskoka, if you're not familiar with the Muskoka area of Ontario, Muskoka is the lake region. And if you're doing well in Ontario, the thing to do, particularly if you're doing well in Toronto, the thing to do is to have a cottage in the Muskokas. The idea is sooner or later, everybody gets sick of the density of Toronto, and so they want to get out of the city. We've been in lockdown, and so there have been rules saying you're not allowed to go to your cottage. That's had everybody frustrated. But those rules have finally been lifted, and so now people are starting to head out to their cottages. Now, if you're, out in the Muskoka region and you got a bunch of people from Toronto who all want to come to the Muskoka region, and you're in the middle of a pandemic, how excited are you about that? Probably not very. So you understand the dynamic there. But it's happened, and people are heading out to their cottages. People who are already out at their cottages, ultimately have been weathering this pandemic anyway. And if you were to ask me about enforcement, I don't know. I have never heard a single story about anybody actually enforcing this rule. So, but at any rate, the roads are open in that respect, and so people are heading out, and they're doing what everybody in Ontario does in the summer, which is they go to the lake. Now, so we're clear. Lake Muskoka is sort of like it's a million sort of wobbly puzzle piece lakes, all kind of connected together by somebody that is visually impaired and cannot make a puzzle. So that's sort of the topography of it. So there's a lot of little coves, and it's maximum surface area for the amount of lakes. So there's a lot of cottages there. The cottages themselves traditionally were high-end assets. So the Seagrams, the people who were doing the bootlegging back in the Prohibition period in the States, they made money hand over fist doing that. And one of the ways you would get booze around back in the old days is with fast boats, because Lake Ontario, etc.
Yeah.
And so the kind of boats they would cruise around on these lakes were, for the 1920s, the craziest, most badass boats you can find. They have a museum of them, and these things are gorgeous. We're talking beautiful woods shaped in sort of long, sort of cigarette boat sort of shapes. Some of them with a little bit more of a racing hull, some of them more for cruising. All of them luxurious as hell, and all of them just beautiful to look at. And so when you're naming your brewery Muskoka, you have something to live up to. Looking at the character we have on the can here, what is he doing? This is Mad Tom. Oh, he's got a barrel.
Mad Tom. No one calls me Mad Tom.
Bootlegger? I think he's a bootlegger. I think Mad Tom must have been a bootlegger. Now, I don't know if there was a real historical Mad Tom, but I kind of hope that there was, because I think that would sell the beer just a little better. We've all seen probably that sort of quasi-good Sleeman's ads, the ad that, where Sleeman's is talking about the family history of them being bootleggers. Muskoka is where the bootleggers that were successful lived. They were the ones that cashed in on that, and they were like the pimp daddy coke dealers of the day. So does this beverage live up to that history, that reputation? No. It's good. I don't know if it's that good, but I figured I'd tell the story because, talking, show, etc.
I wonder if Mad Tom. No, it wouldn't be. Did you guys ever used to watch a show, Shane? You wouldn't. Called Moonshiners.
I've heard of it. I don't think I ever watched it though.
Moonshiners. I can't remember what channel it was on. It was like Discovery Channel or something. Anyway, it was a reality TV show that chronicled supposedly the trials and tribulations of some moonshiners in the southern states, and how they would, make their liquor, sell it, and everything, and avoid the law. There was this one character on it. His name was Jim Tom, and he was like the stereotypical southern hillbilly guy. Like one buck tooth. And he had like overalls on with like one strap on and the other one off and everything. And his name was Jim Tom. So I'm kind of wondering if maybe the Mad Tom on your can is Jim Tom from Moonshiners. No, that wouldn't be the case.
Well, I actually, while you were talking there, Locke, I actually looked up Muskoka Brewery's Mad Tom IPA mystery.
Did you?
And apparently in 2013, Muskoka Brewery unravels the Mad Tom mystery by exploring the many legends behind the name of Mad Tom IPA. And they did this is 2013, they did a bunch of radio, they did a bunch of other stuff. But essentially, what it says here is Muskoka Brewery leveraged the power of campfire storytelling for its latest campaign to advertise the Mad Tom IPA, which explores some of the many possible legends behind the name of the beer. It was done by all over the place. A bunch of things were created for this online. Featured spots that they advertised with potentially that it was the brand coming from the mysterious death of Canadian painter Tom Thompson, while others suggest that it was an angry customer named Tom who wrote a letter to the brewery when it switched from bottled to canned beer. That's a thing. They also collected a bunch of information, a bunch of other Mad Tom stories from around Canada by getting people to send their stories in. So they basically were trying to say that there was really not one story behind this. But the one element that survived this campaign is there's a Twitter account called Muskoka Mad Tom, which has the image of that. I'm assuming this is a brewery-made thing. Maybe not. Could have just been somebody having fun. But it goes to a website called madtom.ca, which might be... Yeah, it goes to the some crazy dude on Facebook. So I suspect this is probably not a Muskoka Brewing thing. But anyway, here are the latest tweets from Mad Tom from Muskoka. You think the children have seen dusty hearts in your window? Change it to something useful like wools and prepare them for the wild. That was just a couple weeks ago. This rabbit stew has a note of chocolate. Maybe do yourself a favor and avoid looking at that face as well. Ah, what, you wore jeans today? You should get a medal. Finally, people are heeding my 2-meter limit on personal contact. Keep walking, jerkwad. So it's basically a Mad Tom being angry online, and every so often showing off cans of Muskoka beer.
That's kind of cool.
My life is a case of Schrodinger's cat. I'm the only mad one in the presence of fools. Which apparently, August 1st, who knew? Apparently that's National IPA Day. So there you go. So basically, there you go. That's the story behind the Muskoka Mad Tom, is that there is no story because there are just too many to tell. And you can also follow the Angry Twitter account, which doesn't get a whole lot of traffic, it seems, but it definitely is amusing. So there you go, Locke. That's your Muskoka Mad Tom education for the day.
So now here's a little bit of a connection, possibly, between Muskoka Brewing and the island here.
Okay.
I believe that when Vancouver Island Brewing was sold a few years ago, that the new owner of it was also a partial owner in Muskoka Brewing.
Oh, interesting.
I wonder if they share recipes.
If they share recipes?
Well, yeah. I mean, wouldn't that make sense? I mean, to have like one beer and just label it two different things, like one in Vancouver Island and one in Muskoka.
Hold on. So are you saying that Vancouver Island is now brewing Muskoka beers?
Well, I no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, is that a possibility?
If Muskoka Brewery in Ontario were to use one of Vancouver Island's recipes, which one would you be inclined to suggest that they apply?
Terminator.
Definitely.
Herminator.
So if you're gonna go Herminator, they gotta go Herman's first, though, don't they?
I guess so. Although I don't actually know if they make Herman's anymore.
Do they not?
I don't think they do. If they do, they change the name of it.
Well, okay, yeah. So, all right, okay. But you're right. The Herminator is kind of Vancouver Island's sort of star of the show.
Yes, it is. By far, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the Herminator is the only thing that Vancouver Island Brewing makes which I find remotely palatable.
Oh, ouch. Whew.
Boom. Mic drop.
Mic drop. The show's over. We're not coming back. We're done.
I don't remember the last time I bought any Herman's, but I know I drink it on tap. When I'm in Victoria, anyway.
Herman's beer. I used to love Herman's. I drank it all the time.
Is Canterbury still around?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Canterbury Brewing?
Of island breweries, I always said Herman's from Vancouver Island and Canterbury were sort of the granddaddies of
yes,
of the scene, really. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Way back in the day, I really liked Piper's Pale Ale as well, from Vancouver Island Brewing. But when I tried it again, compared to say like Blue Buck or something like that, I mean, it just doesn't roll.
Yeah, I remember that.
Hey, look, what my grandparents thought was cooking, Jesus.
Luckily, I think they fixed it, at least somewhat.
Yeah, so they did a rebrand at Vancouver Island Brewing, and we tried the Piper's Pale Ale before that. We weren't too impressed with it. Then after the rebrand, they changed up some of their recipes slightly, and we tried it again, and we liked it a lot better. But still, it wasn't on the same par as say like Blue Buck or I don't know, one of those other kinds of beers that you can get from a craft brewing company. So we thought they had a long way to go. And since then, we've tried stuff like the Nanaimo Bar Porter, which got a pass from, I think, all of us.
Yeah, I don't remember liking that one at all.
I tried their Cherry Cola Marzen recently, and I had real high hopes for it, and it just disappointed.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that. Yeah.
You know what? They do have an IPA, which they never had before. They never had an IPA. I think what I'm going to have to do
nowadays, don't they?
Oh yeah. So what I would like to do is I would like to get the IPA from Vancouver Island Brewing, and I'd like to get that Mad Tom from Muskoka, and I want to compare the two.
Ah, that's a worthy project. I approve of this drag race.
What is the IPA called at Vancouver Island Brewing?
I believe it's called Broken Islands, maybe.
I'm just bringing up, so Broken Islands Hazy IPA.
Oh, that's a hazy IPA. No, that's not going to do.
So they've got a Pilsner, the IPA, a Pale, a Lager, a Dark Lager, Pipers, of course, and Point Break Sour.
Oh, okay. So they don't actually have an IPA on their regular roster then.
It doesn't look like right now their title series is the Pina Colada Balon, the Wanda Fuca Cerveza, the Twisted Stock Blackberry.
Now, okay, actually, I got to backtrack here. So the Twisted Stock Blackberry, which I haven't tried before, they did have another before their rebrand. They did have another blackberry ale, which was really, really quite good. Now, I don't know if it's exactly the same as the Twisted Stock, but I'd be willing to give that one a try.
The only other IPA they have on their website, or at least they're talking about, is the retired DDH Tropical Punch IPA. I have no idea what that is. It sounds horrible.
It sounds like a disease.
That's probably why.
Sorry, you've got
the DDH Tropical Punch. What? Yeah, it's an IPA strain. No. But they do have.
We're gonna have to go on lockdown.
Yeah,
everybody shelter in place.
Shelter in place. Make sure that. But you know, Vancouver Island Brewing does do delivery right now, so there you go.
So does Fat Type.
I know they deliver here, and I'm afraid to buy some because it'll go really fast.
Actually, no. You don't have to worry about that. Driftwood is, I don't believe, delivering in Vancouver anymore.
Oh well, you know, lockdown
that ended last week. They're just doing Victoria now.
Oh well. But I'm assuming the lockdown is going to start winding down over the next few weeks. Closing in closer to July, we'll eventually be able to leave our homes without fear of instant and horrific death.
I don't think that's how it works.
No?
I think no. I think sadly the problem with it isn't that it causes instant death. The problem is that after 2 weeks you might start to show symptoms, and then it causes slow death, or slow then rapid death. And the problem is that you might be asymptomatic for much of the time that you have the thing, and that it might not be you that dies. One of the concerns I have is, so given that everybody's been cooped up for a while, everybody's really itching to get out, and everybody's a little bit pent up and a little bit frustrated. What do you make of what's going on in the States right now?
Is this really an area that we want to explore?
Because this is not a new problem.
No,
how much of the reaction to it is fueled by the COVID-19 thing? How much of the
I don't think any of it.
How much of COVID-19 is going to be fueled by the reaction?
Well, okay, that's another matter.
Actually, I hadn't thought of that, to be honest.
There will be a spike because of all of this. But none of this is fueled by COVID-19. The same thing happened in the Rodney King, the aftermath of the Rodney King thing.
How many?
This extreme.
In a full week, This has been a full week, and it's
Yes.
across not only U.S.
It's a build, right? It's a build.
Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking that it is something that's been going on for a very long time. It's not as you said, it's not new. It's not anything we haven't seen already. Rodney King's a good example. But I think part of what's going on is we've actually got that sort of the perfect storm of what the federal government in that country is doing, specifically their leader, who's nuts.
Fair enough.
And his just absolute constant disrespect of pretty much anybody. Except for, I guess, his cronies for maybe 10 minutes, then he hates them later.
Yeah.
But I think that has fueled everything else. I mean, the shooting death of George Floyd is horrible in itself, and it is definitely a match.
He wasn't shot to death. He wasn't.
Sorry, he was killed. Sorry,
Trayvon Martin.
Yeah, sorry. There have been too many, but
exactly.
But his exactly.
It's not bad.
Exactly, and the reality is that one of the situations that, or this particular situation is watching the justice system in this case go faster than it normally would, which I think is okay because we have there's obvious evidence of what occurred. We know, there's no question what happened that resulted in his death. So I think it was just today that they arrested the other 3 police officers who were there. They fired them pretty much day 2. And then last Friday, I think they charged the one guy who actually was on top of Mr. Floyd. And then the other 3, I guess, his partners and 2 other police officers who arrived, who basically, I guess, from what I understand, they just stood around and protected the guy on the ground, the police officer, on the ground from being interrupted or whatever. So now they're also in jail because they've now been charged with whatever they've been charged with specifically. And I think that's really not necessarily a bad thing in this case because some people will say that mob justice is not a good idea, and it generally isn't. But in this particular case, that's not really what's going on. It's just another person who's been killed by the police who have been basically thrown aside. But I think what also is happening as well is we're seeing how the police in different jurisdictions around that country respond to this kind of rioting. And you're seeing some really ugly things that I think need to be seen, because I don't think that it's sitting around pretending that, oh, well, that kind of behavior only happens in China, with their military, like what we've been seeing in Hong Kong for the last year and a half. But now that this is happening here to this type of tension that's exploding,
well, in the U.S. at least.
Sorry?
Well, in the U.S. at least.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would like to say that Canada is pristine from this kind of stuff, but of course it's not. It never will be, and no country is.
No, Canada's not pristine. Look, Canada's history is different than the U.S.
Yeah, well, that's
media. We play their video games. We eat their bubble gum.
Exactly.
We drink the Kool-Aid, and we're there.
Yeah.
So there was an interesting article that was in the Times Colonist. I can't remember if it was today or yesterday. So there was a guy. He is a middle school principal in Ladysmith, and he is of African heritage. He relocated to Canada from he said Chicago a few years ago because he wanted a bit of a better life. But his family was still in Chicago. And the reason why an article was printed about it is because during the riots, his brother and his cousin were shot dead in their car in Chicago. They don't know who did it. They don't know if it was the police that did it. They don't know if it was the angry mobs that did it, although that does not seem plausible to me that the angry mobs would shoot two black men in their car.
There you go.
Exactly. So this is why this was published, and so this fellow who's in Ladysmith now, he says, in Canada is so much different from being in the States. Not to say that we don't have our problems here. We absolutely do.
Yeah.
And we do need to address them. But it's not the same thing as down in the States. And it was just kind of poignant that there has been, if that kind of thing happened here in Canada, that would be front page news across the country. 2 black men sitting in their car shot to death. And it doesn't even get a mention in the United States media. It's that common. It's that in everyday kind of thing. It's just accepted. And that's wrong. It can't.
Yeah.
How do I know that in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, and nobody in Chicago does?
It's the dynamic of fear is part of it. Like when you've got 2 people that have gotten to the point where, like I was thinking about this in terms of the brinksmanship that's been going on between the U.S. and China. It doesn't matter what your average Chinese guy thinks, and it doesn't matter what your average American thinks, because once that declaration of war happens, think about Japan in the 1940s, right? There were people in Japan who were arguing for the Westminster system of government in Japan. What happened to them when Japan unilaterally sent bombers to blow up the American fleet? At that point, you can't say, well, we'd like to negotiate. Like at that point, nobody trusts anybody who's Japanese, including American citizens, Canadian citizens, people who are patriots of the country they live in. They're now rounded up because nobody knows who to trust anymore. When trust goes away, everything goes away. We need to figure out a way to build more trust.
Well, I think what it is, and I think it's more of like a class struggle than it is a racial struggle. But I think you've got the powerful speak a certain language, and the unpowerful speak another language, and they have no way of communicating. They don't have any common ground, and that's the issue. It's a lack of communication. They don't understand each other. They both speak English, but it may as well be, one speaking Greek and the other one speaking Chinese. They don't understand each other, and it's never going to happen until each side takes a walk in the other's shoes.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, I think of the coverage that I've seen, which I really haven't paid a whole lot of attention because I've been a bit busy lately, but and it just becomes noise after a while, if you're only half paying attention. So, but the one thing that I did see was that on the CBC they were talking about signs that were at different protests around the U.S. And I think the one that stuck with me was the which I had never really thought about from that perspective, which is I'm going to paraphrase it, but essentially the sign was that currently living on this planet, we are living in a situation where people that have gone through a lot of training, police specifically,
Sure,
have the ability they've been trained to act on impulse. They've been trained to respond to certain situations, and hopefully remain as calm as possible. But civilians who are just untrained people are expected to remain calm in the same situation while somebody's waving a gun in their face. And I thought that, and if you really think about it for a moment, you kind of go, well, actually, I've never really thought of it in that situation where if somebody, a police officer ran up to you and with his weapon drawn and was saying, hey.
How would you react, Shane, or any of you guys? How would you react if a guy, even if he was in an officer in a uniform, and you didn't know who he was, if he came up and pointed a gun at you, what would you do?
Well, the instant response that I would do would be run the hell away. I mean,
fight or flight.
You will not outrun the bullet.
No. Hang on. He said wave. He said with his gun out. He didn't say he was shooting at me though. Sorry.
Let me tell you what you do in that situation, because this is not hypothetical for me. I've done that. You smile.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean...
You smile. That's what you do.
Hey, how's it going?
You try to be that guy's friend.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, this is the thing, right? Is that...
You're okay. Yeah, you're okay, and he's okay. Yeah, you smile is what you do.
and if he, like...
Says the guy still here talking to you.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
I have the advantage because I'm white.
True.
Or, assuming that cops give a shit about what, assuming that cops give a shit, then that probably helped. It probably didn't like the fact that I was taller than they were. That's probably why that incident happened in the first place. So, there's a bit of this and a bit of that, but...
So you've actually had a gun pulled on you?
Well, yeah, just briefly. I mean, the incident didn't last long.
God.
Cops react fucking pretty dramatically sometimes over stuff that you would...
Was that in Canada?
Yes.
Wow. Don't they have to fill out a report every time they draw their weapon?
Probably.
I wonder if that was done.
It is possible.
Like I say, it was a very brief incident.
What was the context? Was it just random, or was it there was something going on and they thought you might be involved for a moment, or what?
No. It was a group of people. I was only one of them. But it was a moment of surprise. I'll be honest, my memories of it are a little shaky because I was a little bit drunk at the time. But ultimately, and I'm not saying that I was the key person to do this, but I was one of the important people who took the important step of smiling and making nice. That it became clear that we were not malefactors, but rather good people, just in a situation that caught somebody a little bit off guard.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
I mean,
they were already looking for somebody else. Was the circumstance, but
right, okay.
And you just happened to be in the middle of the bank vault just by coincidence.
There was no bank vault involved. Maybe a dark alley, but and were we in the dark alley for good reasons or bad reasons? If it had happened today, they wouldn't have been bad reasons because what we were doing was totally legal. But at the time, it might have been a questionable activity, but it wasn't what they were looking for because they were looking for somebody else.
Okay. But that speaks to Locke's point, though. I mean, if the color of his skin had been a bit different, the outcome could have been.
Yeah, that outcome could have gone way different. And the worst thing I could have been in this country probably wouldn't have been black, but rather would have been native.
Yeah.
Those are the people who really take it on the chin in Canada, truthfully.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And actually, honestly, probably in the States as well. If we're honest,
if you know what a buffalo soldier is, then yeah, damn right.
Yeah. It's interesting that we don't, as a planet, seem to get many breaks this year. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of positive news going on.
Who's read the latest William Gibson book?
I haven't, no.
So he has this plot device, which is to say that and Gibson's method is that he doesn't, as a science fiction writer, he doesn't make shit up. He just looks at the latest, sort of magazine articles from everywhere he can and just takes all the bleeding edge stuff and just assumes that shit's all going to fly and writes that. And his latest book he postulates this thing which he calls the jackpot. And it's where all the bad stuff happens all at the same time. Now, this book was released back in February or something. Maybe, no, earlier than that. It might have been back in December. But this book, it predates COVID-19. And I gotta say, if you as a writer sat down and wrote, well, okay, so there's gonna be this circumstance where all the stuff that can go wrong, that can possibly go wrong, all happens at once, and each piece exacerbates the other piece, and it's a fucking shit show. And we're talking about a scenario in which there's a little bit of a speculative time travel thing going on here. It's not actual time travel, it's virtual time travel, but we're looking at different scenarios under which, so you're trying as many scenarios as you can to try to figure out which one gets you out.
Right.
And the number of them that go wrong seems like there's a lot of them. One of the pieces involved is artificial intelligence. That's to say, not my argument about artificial intelligence, but something totally independent that's got its own aims, its own ends, totally independent from humanity at all. Anyway, but what he keeps floating back to is there are all these pieces in play right now, and I have this concept, which is that wrong all at the same time. They all make the other bad. I think it's sort of what we're watching right now.
Interesting.
I think the worst case scenario of the stuff that I'm looking at right now is a shooting war between the US and China. That would really, really suck.
Yeah.
And not just for the US and China. That would be a planetary fucking disaster.
Well, exactly, because what's going on in China has been overshadowed by COVID, and has been overshadowed by these riots the past week and a bit. In the news, anyway, because all of what's going on is important, but I gotta say that this whole what's going on in Hong Kong is surprising in a lot of ways, but not unexpected in other ways. And Taiwan is next. China has pretty much said, that this law that we passed is the first step, blah, blah, blah. But Taiwan is freaking out and preparing for the worst, because they think that I think what it sounds like Taiwan is afraid of. I mean, I'm not an expert in Taiwan in any way, shape, or form, but the stuff that I have read is that they're afraid that overnight it's going to be overrun with the military. That they're just going to invade. Now, granted, Taiwan is not necessarily an unarmed state. They will fight to protect themselves. And the last time I checked, Taiwan had signed some pretty significant deals with countries around the world to help it, remain in its own place, right? So
you know who Dr. Sun Yat-sen was?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, there was a point in history where all of China might have become a democracy.
Mm-hmm.
What happened was that in order for it to be a legitimate democracy, having engaged with the Chinese people and got their consent to put this action forward, he then put military power in the hands of, and state power in the hands of a proxy, so that they could have a free and fair election. So that instead of Sun Yat-sen just sort of declaring, well, yeah, I got consent of all these people, so I'm now the leader, I want an actual election. And if they vote for me, then I'm the leader. And so he put the power in the hands of a proxy. So the proxy then took the power and took over the country and exiled Sun Yat-sen, chased him out. Did they kill him? No, I think they just chased him out. I'm foggy on that point. Anyway, point being, the republic that would have been a democracy escaped to Taiwan, which is what happened with the former Ming Dynasty when the Mongols took over.
Yeah.
They became the Republic of China in Taiwan, and the people. No, this was before the People's Republic. Then the People's Republic eventually overthrew the guy who took power, and that's how we ended up with the People's Republic of China, which decided it was going to be communist rather than democratic. Communist is probably a misnomer here, because I don't think they've ever been particularly curious or keen on, the views of any of the classic communist writers. The point for them was, we're whatever you Westerners are doing, whatever all this modern shit is, we'll say whatever words you want us to say, but we're doing what we're doing. Get out of our face. You want us to come up with a theory as to why you're getting out of our? Yeah, we're communists. That's why you're not doing business. That's why there's a wall. Yeah, communist.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
I mean,
that's essentially
all of the People's Republic of China stuff happened right after World War II, right?
Yeah. Like,
so it came pretty much came right afterwards. So, I mean, this is the thing, is that at that time, the world was kind of in an upheaval, because a lot of munitions were being thrown at each other for a while, quite some time, and not long after the First World War either. So, you have all these things going on where these governments are vying for survival in all kinds of ways and identities and whatnot, because I think for a while, after large conflicts like that, I think governments, people in general, just kind of lose their they don't know who they are for a while, because all of this stuff has happened. And I think definitely, COVID is not a war per se, but there is a casualty list. And, we are, I think a lot of us, especially people that have been out of work for months, are scared and doing all kinds of, inner evaluations and whatnot. And I was just saying, I think, to somebody the other day, but it would be too bad if, when COVID is defeated and becomes background noise like a lot of other diseases, I hope we don't go back to what we had or what we were doing beforehand. I hope that some of these changes stick. That something positive comes out of all of this.
I hope the right ones stick.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is the thing, right? Is that right now, probably the scariest thing beyond the riots going on right now in the States and a lot of cities, is what is going to happen for their election in the fall. And I'm not talking about
and what's going to happen to Hong Kong.
Sorry?
And what's going to happen to Hong Kong?
Well, yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've kind of given up on what's going to happen to I'm guessing what's going to happen to Hong Kong, because we already know what's going to happen to Hong Kong. Like, it's not a surprise. And the reality is, what is anybody going to do about it? China knows that no one's going to do anything, generally speaking. I don't think any country in the world right now is going to go to war over it. So it's like, what did anyone do when Russia marched across the border a couple of years ago? Like, did anyone say anything? Did anyone? I mean, people said things. People were upset. We basically watched a country trip over itself and grab more land for itself. Said, hey, you're supposed to be here, and that's how it's going to happen. And it's not a new thing. It's been happening since countries were even a concept. But in the modern context of our contemporary world, I mean, are we too afraid of going and having World War III because of the technology and the weaponry we have right now?
Have any of you watched Occupied?
Sorry?
Occupied. Yeah. Might be available on Netflix, I think. So Norwegian production, based on a premise by Joe Nesbo, the mystery writer. It's political intrigue along the lines on the premise that Russia takes control of Norway, like effectively invades their sovereignty, and it follows that thread.
I should check that out, because I've seen something by Nesbo, but also his the other person who created the show. I will not pronounce any of their names, but yeah, I should check that out. I mean, this is the thing, right? Is that it's kind of, it's almost quaint and adorable to think back to the 80s when films like Red Dawn and America. Remember the TV series, that miniseries called America with a K or whatever it was?
No.
It was like 5 episodes or 10 episodes or something, but it was a very short, or maybe it was like 2-3 hour movies or something. But essentially, the thing I remember about America is like Russian soldiers standing outside of a McDonald's eating hamburgers. And it was all about how Russia was going to take over the States. And
didn't they?
Didn't they? Maybe. But it's quaint and cute in that sort of way, because the way that things are being taken over in the world is and how things are changing.
Little green men ain't the issue anymore. It's exactly the guys who you need to watch.
Exactly, and that's the problem. I can't imagine what this world is going to be like in 100 years, because I have very few hopes that it's going to turn out in a positive way. I think we're going to go down a very dark place. Maybe
look at it this way: in 100 years, who's going to care?
Well, I certainly won't give a shit. But I think that there's definitely a lot that I think we need to. To be honest, I'm at that stage right now, probably because I'm tired. But I don't see a way out in any way, and I don't know what kind of role I would ever play. But I am not hopeful for the future. I'm hoping for Firefly, to be honest.
I'm a short-term pessimist, but a long-term optimist.
Well, I'm not that way right now, and I kind of hope. I mean, my attitude generally is like just what Alan says. In 100 years, who's going to really care? Because it's not going to be me. Because
Shane.
unless I become a cyborg and live long in my in a robot body or something. But
Shane.
Yeah.
What year did the Mongols rule China?
Was that after when Joan of Arc, Noah's wife? Isn't that what? Wasn't that when they went out for dinner once?
Actually, he's not far wrong. Like we're talking the right millennium and within a century or so.
It's true. It's very true. I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm tired. I'm not very optimistic at all of late in terms of the political spectrum of what's going on our planet. But at the same time, I guess in some weird way, I'm optimistic and positive about it because I know that these kinds of things need to happen. Because change is never going to happen. Change doesn't just happen on a geological kind of scale. Right?
Change is painful.
It doesn't. Yeah, exactly. It's like we're gonna have to get kicked in the nards a few times, and then eventually, our nards will be stronger or something, or grow walnuts over top of them.
Is that how that works?
Apparently, you get kicked in the nards, and suddenly, turtle shell. It's like the shells in Demolition Man. We'll never know how they evolved, but you know what they're for.
I am going to quote Jaron Lanier, who's one of the tech guys that Gibson used to float around with, and say that things will get better, because if they don't, they're not going anywhere at all.
No, I mean that's true. It's going to remain absolutely the same,
and that's a great place to sort of like end off.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I just realized we've been streaming for over an hour, so I think it's also time. It's time for Locke to go to bed. But thank you all for watching. We've had a bunch of watches today. Thanks so much, and hopefully we didn't bum you out too much because reasons. I'm sure it's Dave's fault.
You watched the first half. Yeah.
Exactly. But until next week, we'll see you then. Again, might try and stream on the weekend. You never know. Bye, everybody. Yeah. And Alan, do whatever you need to do to take us out.
Not gonna do anything.
How do you turn this thing off?